Welcome back, focused learners. Let's dive right into today's explainer on ISO 14001-2026. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. An ISO standard? Isn't that just some dry, dusty compliance manual sitting on a manager's shelf? Well, actually, scratch that. Not anymore. I want you to completely shift your perspective here. We need to look at ISO 14001-2026 not as a boring checklist, but as a living, breathing, high-performance corporate engine. When built correctly, it literally drives an entire company's strategic direction. So let's fire it up.
Okay, let's dive right into this blueprint for building a fully integrated corporate environmental machine. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. First up, moving from silos to systems. Second, defining system boundaries. Third, turning the corporate gears. Fourth, the leadership engine. Fifth, planning for real impact. And finally, number 6, viewing it all through the auditor's lens.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, From Silos to Systems.
This represents a massive shift. The old way of doing environmental management? It usually meant a lonely environmental officer tucked away in a basement office, reacting to spills, managing waste tickets, and, just trying to keep the company out of legal trouble. It was a totally reactive compliance model. But the new way under ISO 14001-2026? It mandates that environmental strategy is actually embedded across all your business processes. It's proactive. It looks at the entire life cycle of a product or service. The environment is no longer just a separate department you ignore until something goes wrong. It's woven into the very fabric of how the business operates every single day.
Now that we've got the philosophy down, let's move right into Section 2, Defining System Boundaries.
Think of this as the outer shell of our machine, the EMS scope. It's defined as the physical, organizational, functional, and operational boundaries of an environmental management system. Now, this isn't just some administrative busywork. It is the structural foundation of an organization's environmental credibility. Your scope dictates exactly where those environmental responsibilities apply. We're talking physical buildings, specific departments, operational processes, the whole shebang. Because if your scope is poorly defined, well, your entire engine is compromised right from the start, leaving these massive gaping holes in your regulatory compliance.
Which brings us to a really fascinating and honestly pretty provocative question. Can an organization just exclude its dirtiest operations?
I mean, it sounds like a cheat code, right? Just pretend the bad stuff doesn't exist. Well, there is absolutely no way you can do that. It's actually one of the biggest audit traps out there. Auditors are aggressively hunting for unjustified scope exclusions. You literally cannot just draw a circle around your pristine corporate office and ignore the factory making your products. For example, omitting high-emission transport fleets just because you use contractors, even though you control the routing, major nonconformance. Same goes for excluding chemical research labs or ignoring outsourced third-party waste treatment when you're the one dictating the disposal methods. If you control it or even heavily influence it, it absolutely has to be inside your scope, period.
All right, we've got our strong outer shell. Now let's jump into Section 3, Turning the Corporate Gears.
What I found so fascinating here is visualizing how this actually works in practice. Picture this dynamic, interconnected machine where environmental policies are weaving seamlessly right into the corporate supply chain logistics, product design, and financial planning gears. This right here perfectly illustrates full strategic alignment and environmental governance. It's not some parallel system running on the side. It's literally the grease and the teeth of the gears that make the core business move forward sustainably.
Let's break down exactly how those gears turn, step by step. Step 1. Procurement isn't just hunting for the cheapest price anymore. They're actively evaluating supplier sustainability. Step 2. Logistics jumps in to optimize route and fuel efficiency. Step 3. Design focuses heavily on lifecycle materials so things can actually be recycled. And Step 4. Finance is right there approving capital specifically for eco-technologies. Do you see how it all connects? Every single department has a hand in turning the gears of the environmental management system.
Let's keep rolling into Section 4, the leadership engine.
Because obviously gears don't just turn themselves, right? The standard issues a very direct mandate here. Quote, top management must ensure environmental management system requirements are integrated into core organizational processes, not operating as parallel systems. End quote. Ultimate accountability rests squarely with leadership. They can't just sign a generic environmental policy once a year, hang it up in the lobby, and walk away. No way. They are required to genuinely align that environmental vision with the company's long-term corporate strategy.
And this brilliantly illustrates how true leadership commitment translates into tangible resources. Let's look at the resource types. Financial commitment means leadership is actually funding advanced wastewater treatment. Human resource commitment, that's paying for the time to train your plant operators on emission controls. And technological commitment means implementing that crucial fuel efficiency software we talked about earlier. Auditors are going to look closely at this exact resource allocation to prove if leadership is genuinely engaged or just, paying lip service.
Okay, let's jump to Section 5, Planning for Real Impact.
With leadership at the wheel, our machine needs a clear destination. A massive part of this planning is adopting a true life cycle perspective. It's wild to realize how far an organization's environmental footprint extends. Look at this timeline. You have to plan for month 1 with raw material extraction, then month 3 with manufacturing and emissions. Month 4 is distribution and logistics. But it doesn't stop there. You have years 1 through 5 of customer usage, all the way out to year 10 for end-of-life disposal. This life cycle thinking forces proactive, sustainable design from day 1. It's a real game changer. Furthermore, your planning has to actually matter by tying your specific objectives to your aspects. Let's look at some industry examples. In food processing, your target needs to be strict wastewater discharge targets, not just recycling office paper. In chemical manufacturing, you need hard limits on hazardous emissions. In logistics, it's all about fleet fuel reduction metrics. To put that into perspective, your objectives absolutely must target your company's most significant real-world impacts.
Finally, let's look at Section 6, the auditor's lens.
This is where the rubber meets the road. When a lead auditor comes in, they are hunting for systemic weaknesses. We're talking common audit traps like those artificial scope limitations we mentioned earlier, trying to hide the dirty operations. They'll look for generic policy wording that completely lacks specific commitments. They're scanning for fragmented, inconsistently applied operational controls, like the day shift following the rules, but the night shift completely ignoring them. And above all, they look for no evidence of strategic leadership integration. If your system is disconnected from daily operations, you will fail certification, for sure.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, here is a question you really need to be asking yourself today. Is your environmental management system just a binder sitting on a shelf, brought out once a year for an audit? Or is it the integrated, well-oiled engine genuinely driving your corporate strategy forward into a sustainable future? ISO 14001:2026 strictly demands the latter. Thank you so much for joining me for this Explainer Today, focused learners. I highly encourage you to take these concepts, go evaluate your own organization's engine, and I'll catch you in the next one.